What fictional character is great in fiction, but would function terribly in real life civilization? Willy Wonka. I can't even count how many laws and regulations his factory would break in real life. Come with me, and you'll see a world of OSHA violations. Edit. Holy duck, my karma quadrupled quintupled. Most dudes from romantic comedy movies would probably be getting charged with stalking and harrament, because rarely does relentlessly pursuing a woman's non-existent affections result in her suddenly changing her mind. This bothers me a lot. If you head over to r/Naseguys, you see a lot of guys who think that persistence and grand gifts will win a girl's heart. I think a lot of guys and girls have a warped view of dating because of how it's portrayed. Doc Brown from Back to the Future has making deals with terrorists for weapons grade plutonium, and his only employee is an underage boy whose duties include recording him alone after midnight in a mall parking lot. I feel like the FBI would put him on multiple lists and just send him to Guantanamo Bay. Nope, they'd hire him. Dora and the Lost City of Gold made it pretty clear how hard Dora the Explorer would find it fitting in a normal school. They'd eat that poor little chica alive. But imagine how good Dora would be in a fist fight. Roadrunner. Slower than a coyote in real life. Sad meep meep. James Bond would get shot and killed immediately. The name is Bond. James Bo. Tom Nook would go bankrupt in a heartbeat. You can straight up neglect paying off your loan for as long as you want. Tom gets a lot of chiz for forcing you to upgrade your house and adding a hefty price tag. And yeah, he is a money-hungry a-hole sometimes, but has not a very good businessman. If it weren't for the villager being a good citizen, his little shack store would have gone bankrupt in days. Johnny Bravo would be really hated and probably be in jail for being a sexual predator. Most women in the cartoon seem to find him pretty creepy, but he would definitely be reported for something. Dude was a perv. The Harry Potter universe would be cool in real life, but those kids got an awful education, barely knowing basic arithmetic. Also, Hogwarts would get closed down pretty quickly under child endangerment laws. I just crushed my own dreams. Yeah, there seems to be this presumption in the wizarding community that there will always be a stay-at-home parent or servant, in the case of the wealthier families, who's expected to homeschool their kids up until the age of 11. Considering how few wizards know anything about the Muggle world, see Arthur Weasley, a Muggle enthusiast who works in a Muggle-centric job but barely understands their culture, it seems unlikely that many put their kids through the Muggle primary school system. So what's a single parent supposed to do? I mean, a ministry salary seems okay. Again, the Weasleys are able to scrape by with a household of 9 people on one salary that's considered meager by ministry standards. But a low-skilled job in the wizarding private sector? You'd probably need both parents to work. Goku. Methodica is like a magnet for villains who want to kill everyone and blow up the planet. He's also a man-child with the ability to blow up planets. I don't think he'd be great for the world as a whole. Godzilla. Square cube law gonna get him. Dracula. Can you imagine the administrative burden of being immortal? Welcome to Bankamont Deli Pashidi Sina. I see you've been a member since 1472. How may I assist you? Peter Griffin. Imagine him as your neighbor. To the Petacopter. Petacopter crashes and destroys Joe's yard. Joe, how do you afford these things? Dr. House from House MD. The way he does things, that chiz would not fly. He's a would-be at best, fired at worst, in jail. That's addressed a lot in the show though. He has problems with new hospital management, police, ends up in a mental institution, goes to prison. It's a recurring theme throughout the series. Detective Conan. It just doesn't work that someone is exposed to so many murder cases. I wouldn't say it's strange that he solves so many cases, but that he stumbles into them almost every day. Seriously, at least Ran has to be traumatized by now. Literally any superhero. Vigilantes are still illegal. Mr. Sansweet didn't ask to be saved. Mr. Sansweet didn't want to be saved, and the consequences of Mr. Incredible's actions, so-called, causes him daily pain. Batman. Superheroes in general when they first arrived on the cultural scene. In was the 1930s and secret identities made sense. These days there are DNA tests, metadata filters, face recognition technology and a 24-hour news cycle. It would take almost no time for the public to speculate who Batman is, and at that point the Joker / Penguin / Riddler / Gene Neural mob boss would blow him at a benefit or board meeting or his house. The only way it would work is the way the MCU presents it. I'm Iron Man, and have the backing of the government, or governments as represented via S.H.I.E.L.D., or alternatively have no life outside of being a pseudo-military figure like Captain America. Zaphod Beeblebrox could never have been a successful politician in real life. He's far too dignified, stodgy and respectable for that career. The purpose of his position, though he isn't supposed to know it, is distraction. Only 6 people in the galaxy knew that the job of galactic president was not to wield power, but to attract attention away from it. He was successful in being the worst president. Casper the Friendly Ghost. Walk into the light, little dude. Nobody tells Dead Richie Rich what to do. Link from Legend of Zelda. You can't just walk into people's houses and smash their furniture in real life. Midsommar Murders. Can't be that many murderers there. My theory is that Barnaby's wife and daughter are actually serial killers, since they are somehow involved in many of the plots and everyone arrested have been framed. Any serialized TV detective. The vast majority of shows surrounding detectives involve murders, and they are solving one murder per week. They are generally the person working the case. Let's say you have a 13-episode season 1 per year. In that you've got at least 12 murders, accounting for a bottle episode. That's 1 murder a month. The caseload for court preparation for a murder is heavy. Very heavy. On top of that there's disclosure and loose ends to hunt down. Even if you get a confession you're still chasing down loose ends just to square the case away. While you're doing that there's court attendance for old cases, further disclosure, administrative nightmares, and so on. All of those serialized detectives would be locked in an office and told, love your work. You're staying here until it's finished. Edit. I wrote this on my phone, so it auto-corrected to loose ends rather than loose. I'm leaving it there, though, because the typo seems to be driving some people insane. The paperwork montage in Hot Fuzz is a fantastic way of addressing this problem. I love John Constantine, but I don't think they'd ever have let him out of the psych ward. Even if he admitted himself he would never be able to leave. I love the character myself, but honestly he would never see the light of day again, unless he forgot about Astral and the Newcastle incident. The Griffins. Family Guy. Pretty much everyone in Family Guy, except maybe Joe and Cleveland. I mean, Quagmire is a serial rapist who engages in necrophilia and bestiality. Peter is horribly abusive, Chris is actually mentally retarded, yet the family never seeks help, and Brian is a talking dog, but he only uses that one-of-a-kind ability to be a smug asshole who doesn't even adhere to his beliefs. Superman. The physics of his abilities would kill people. This is why Mr. Incredible married Elastigirl in The Incredibles. For important reasons of physics. Michael Scott from The Office. He'd get cancelled. We are all homos. Homo sapiens. Any GD that realizes that a normal metal bullet would go right through their lightsaber and barely lose any speed, and also become molten metal. Can the Force stop bullets? Dean Winchester. Just get therapy, pal. Binging the last couple seasons on Netflix. It's like guys you were severely abused as children. Stop drinking and go talk to someone and each other about the trauma you both experience. Ash Ketchum. I haven't actually watched the anime since early Johto, but I always felt that Ash is incompetent and his Pokémon are all around level 20 to 30, tops. Pikachu had Pokris and is up as a result. Either that or Ash was not his first trainer, or actually is really Ryan Reynolds. Mr. Bean. He would be arrested immediately for his acts, and probably won't survive prison. Pretty sure he should be in some kind of sheltered housing. Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory would not function well at all, IRL. Similarly for his friends, especially Howard. There was one episode where they tampered with Sheldon's research and falsified the results and didn't tell him until after he published it. Sheldon did the right thing by retracting the paper and admitting the mistake, but he wasn't at fault for it either. The 3 other guys would have been hit with a research misconduct allegation in real life. Howard was the worst of the 3 with countless instances of misusing funds and research fraud, using his equipment and grant money to build things that weren't authorized in the grant, hacking into a satellite to spy on non-consenting women, breaking and entering into a lab, and even theft. If you can consider moving the rover out of its aimed location theft. He would have been in jail so fast, but the other 2 might be able to avoid jail time. Don't know how well a court would take their defense that it was either research fraud or premeditated murder, though. Close bracket. Kevin McCallister would probably suffer from abandonment issues and PTSD, and there's no way in hell New York City wouldn't have eat him alive. Running around town at night like a fool. He's lucky he didn't get molested. He's just lucky that Pennywise the dancing clown was on break from terrorizing Jonathan Brandis and Seth Green. Most Pokémon would function terribly. While some look fairly normal, it's only when you read some of their descriptions that shows how supernatural they really are. For example, Magcargus' body temperature is said to be 18,000 F. The sun is only 9,941 F in comparison. Some people like to think that the Pokédex descriptions were made by little kids, and that's why they sound so exaggerated. James G. Kirk. That man must have multiple cases of space AIDS. Aren't there space condoms? Part Civil from Ready Player One would just be that one quirky dude who knows a little too much about one particular thing. He'd do something obscure like restore game cabinets, probably run a used game store or something, and would spend all his free time on Reddit/4chan/etc and interest boards. The Ghostbusters. Walter Peck was right. They were operating multiple unlicensed nuclear-powered devices in the middle of New York City was hazardous to the public. He was correct that those devices should have been shut down. But, correctly shut down. Not just unplugged, without any competent authority examining them to find out what they did and what might happen if they weren't gradually powered down. If it had just been some maniac's nuclear Boy Scout style homebrew reactor, it would actually have been worse than ghosts. Significantly worse. I mean, when the Mars halogen melted down, it was just kind of sticky and delicious. A nuclear meltdown would have made the sequel a much cooler post-apocalypse situation. Lots of potential new ghosts, I guess. Like, a whole city's worth. Black Panther in real life, he got shot. Yeah, like there's a quote from the movie that sums it up. People are shooting at me. Wait, let me just put on my helmet. Doomguy. He would think this comparable paradise is an illusion and just kill everything. I see no problem here. Luna love, good look Luna, I don't care if it's what the Naggles want. You have to take vaccinations, damn it. No, you didn't get abducted by aliens. That's just a rash. I snorted. Thanks for this mental image. Sterling Archer. Seriously, what the hell were they paying Brett to not sue ISIS into an oblivion? Steven Universe. CIA imprison and questioned Steven Universe along with his collection of lesbian rocks. Joseph Joster. The next thing you'll say is, sir, please keep your voice down, this is a library. Am I right? Yes. IMHO, none of the members of the JBBA cast would do well, I roll. Maybe not absolute failures, but they're already coded with spectrum disorders and Inventorious case, just to name something specific. Severe unchecked trauma/PTSD with no therapy or proper coping. And Puxy would be laughable as a real priest and end up starting a Manson family style cult for Dio. Glad I'm not the only fan who's thought about this lol. Ant-Man. He would either faint from growing or pop when shrinking. It's established that he can't physically handle being big for too long, but they never really explain the physical impact on his body for being shrunk. It's weird. They do establish that just shrinking someone without properly perfecting the formula does just make them pop, but they never establish how they fixed it. Jessica Fletcher is 100% getting arrested for murder. The entire Cabot Cove police force gets suspended while the state tries to figure out why they were so willing to overlook the fact that the murder rate in that sleepy New England town was higher than in Honduras, and that's beside the fact that every time she goes on holiday some poor ducker gets knifed. More like murder, she did, am I right? Yes. I call the show Murder She Did Too. Does no one realize that she's always around when people are dying? World's most prolific serial killer wrapped up in a cute as the old granny package. Oh, ducking Daenerys Targaryen would be a handful. Bend the knee and get in the damn child seat, Jon Jr. Any superhero destroying the city think they saved it while hundreds of people are either dead or injured from projectiles flying everywhere. Then most buildings are collapsing or on the verge of it. Almost every disastrous superhero confrontation has an incredibly obvious alternative state that's worse. The hero doesn't intervene at all, and the villain wreaks even more havoc, because either nobody else can stop him, or because stopping him with conventional means will cause even more collateral damage. That's why I've never understood this criticism. Comic book writers can be very lazy, but this is one of their tried and true layups. Vampires would probably be extinct due to starvation. If they existed, everyone would put up a cross and some garlic everywhere. After a while they wouldn't be able to go anywhere anymore. Even if they somehow worked around that, evolved for example, and managed to attack people, they are still kind of human. And have human personalities. Which means that at some point a bunch of a-hole vampires would go on a spree and turn, or kill so many humans, they'd reach the point of no return. And soon all humans would be either dead or vampirized, meaning there wouldn't be any food left for them. Other options: drive. How since a world have been in prison, most superheroes would have to pay copious amounts of fines for damaging other people's properties, throwing someone's car on the bad guy etc. Dancer gangs wouldn't face off against other dancing gangs, they'd get beaten the duck up by local thugs because dancing is gay and similar popular toxic opinions. The vampires you say, I'm in no way expert on vampires, but I really see no problem with them existing. I roll. If last few months taught me anything, I can tell that a lot of people would not put up crosses and garlic anywhere. There would be people actively denying existence of vampires and destroying crosses on the roads. Giving a vampire human-like personality will lead to vampires actively lobbying for this cause and sending people against each other. As for the food problem, I can imagine human farms and blood harvesting in a big scale. Blood would be packed and sold among the kin in form of blood packs to avoid turning subject on the farm to vampires. Then it really depends on what kind of a vampire you have in mind. It might be hard or easy to turn human to vampire. Vampire might be able to drink non-human blood or human only. They might be secretive about their existence or super arrogant and come out to the open. They might even be friendly and not hunt humans for sport. With things being the way they are in the America right now, and knowing the type of man Steve Rogers is, I would fully expect American police, encouraged by Donald Trump, to attempt to beat Captain America's A. Before we get started, does anyone want to get out? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We probably would try to get them to experiment with them or something. Probably get locked away by the government within a week. Junie B. Jones. In the one book my niece has, it mentions that she hit a girl on the head with a lunch tray and tackled a girl by jumping off the swing set. She would get much worse punishment than a note home. As she grew older, her name calling, egg, you dumb bunny and another annoying habits would cause her to lose friends pretty fast. You'd think she'd get therapy before all that. Any powerful wizard from Harry Potter or worlds with similar magic systems. Spells are cool, but bullets are faster and you'd ducking bet anyone could pull a trigger quicker than Voldemort would yell Avada sorry if I butchered the spelling. The wizard's biggest east wouldn't be their ability to kill, but their ability to move around undetected very quickly. I would argue normal weapons are much deadlier than a killing curse and a wizard would have very easy access to such weapons. It should be relatively easy for a wizard to apparate into, say, a nuclear weapons storage facility, magic a warhead into something like Hermione's handbag, apparate out of the facility to a major city, and then arm the weapon using magic and apparate away. Stuff like apparition is so powerful even in the magical world that JK had to nerf it by making secure locations like Hogwarts inaccessible to apparition. A muggle facility would have no such protections. Furthermore, the ability to control minds to the degree that even other wizards had extreme difficulty preventing infiltration into the highest level of their government would likely be even easier against muggles. Muggle minds were also extremely susceptible to larger scale pieces of manipulation like muggle repelling charms which could make them totally forget what they were trying to do and run away. Oh, and wizards have more powerful spells than the killing curse. Peter Pettigrew, a relatively weak wizard, was able to blow up an entire street and kill a dozen people with one spell. Presumably this means wizards have the ability to cast spells with similar effects to military explosive weapons. Sure, if a muggle with a gun and a wizard stood 20 yards apart, and the muggle fired a bullet and the wizard fire a killing curse, the wizard would probably lose. But this scenario totally removes all the advantages a wizard would have. Drax. Well, of course, he'd fail in society. No one can see him. Andy from Parks and Recreation. I'm not sure about that. He got his life together by season 3 or 4. Maybe he would died while living in the pit though. Any character from Miraculous, Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir. I ducking hate how everyone is buying Lilish every time, when it was established many times that she is a cheap liar. I'm too lazy to scroll. If someone said this before, but Phoenix Wright would be a terrible lawyer. Screaming at the top of your lungs at a witness is definitely not a useful thing. Also, he was his own lawyer once. The Avengers. T would have spent rest of their life trying to prove their innocence for the damage they caused, while trying to save their humanity after New York City and Ultron. They would be caught up in the politics and stupidity PF people. I sort of understand the Ultron and Sokovia thing, but New York City was absolutely none of their faults. S.H.I.E.L.D. decided to experiment on the Tesseract. Loki, an alien, stole it and opened a portal over New York. Then the board of directors tried to nuke the city. The Avengers saved thousands, if not millions of lives by being there. Hulk. In real life, the superpower you get from massive gamma ray exposure is unregulated cell growth. Rick from Rick and Morty. We know how he deals with people he considers idiots. He couldn't function in a world with no portal technology, no aliens, and a president that's much worse than the one from his show. I'd give him 36 hours before he'd either be nuts, dead, or had completely destroyed our planet. He'd probably create a portal machine using an old Nintendo, radioactive something something and bull sweat. Gregory House. Pretty much every episode included at least one fireable offense, and he did so many procedures and tests that most insurance companies wouldn't pay for, so all the patients he cured would die of poverty anyway. This one. I'm always surprised that not more people bring up that the man probably buried his patients in medical debt. Greg Universe would straight up lose custody of Steven. If not as a young child, then definitely later on after Connie's mom found out he had never been to a doctor. She's a mandatory reporter. She can't just ignore that. Robin Hood. Dexter. He knows how the police work, is meticulous as hell, and relatively attractive. I don't see him having any trouble at all fitting in. This is assuming we are referring to the TV Dexter, of course. Book Dexter is a hot mess that should not have done as well as he did. Jessica Fletcher from Murder, She Wrote. First off, let's address how many goddamn murders happen in Cabot Cove for a small town. It's on the level of Mexican cartel towns. But on top of that, how many deaths follow Jessica? Either she would be under constant suspicious, or she is literally the angel of death. I wouldn't even want to be her friend, even if she's absolutely a lovely person. Too many people die around her for my own good. Jessica Fletcher murders people, then spins an elaborate tale to pin it on someone else. I heard one of the ideas for the final episode was to reveal Jessica was really a serial killer, but it was an inside joke. It would have been a phenomenal ending. Jim Halpert from The Office. For starters, Jim, that sexual harassment. Your flirty thing with Pam. It's not cute. It's a clear violation of Dunder Mifflin's code of conduct. As for your weird interactions with Dwight, his behavior is not an excuse for your behavior. Every one of those pranks was done on the clock. I know Michael refuses to enforce discipline at the Scranton branch, but you chose to spend your time putting White's stapler in Jello. That's on you, not Michael or Dwight. Lastly, your sales have been unimpressive to say the least. No one here's going to pretend that the paper business is on the upswing, but I'll bet you would do a lot better if you spent a little less time hitting on Pam and antagonizing Dwight. These things are all related, Jim. That's why we have to let you go. In the episode where Dwight wins Salesman of the Year, he mentions to Jim that Jim was the 9th best in the company. He was a good salesman without really trying. Eric Cartman. I think it's pretty much confirmed that a lot of people are like Eric Cartman. Goku. He'd probably be deemed a threat to national security due to pretty much being a god. But what are they gonna do about it? Man can blow up the planet easily and can fight a literal god who can do it even easier. He'd be fine. The GD. A well-armed police force that abducts children and starts deadly fights without any judicial oversight. Happened several times in history actually. Like the Mamluks, the Janissaries, the Gestapo, the NKVD, etc. A lot of African militias work exactly like this. Aquaman. He'd have a terrible time in seafood restaurants. No he wouldn't, he eats fish. Winnie the Pooh. Severe malnutrition, not to mention diabetes. Every main characters from Simpson-like shows. The entire Pokémon system is messed up. There's just so much wrong with it. Shrek. Nah, Shrek would fit right in, because ya know ogres are like onions and onions do well in our world. Homer Simpson. He'd be in jail for strangling his kid. John Wick would be dead in 33 seconds in a real firefight against 20 different gunmen. Squidward. He'd have committed suicide long ago if it wasn't for his clarinet. Sherlock Holmes. No just Sherlock. Captain America. I'd imagine cancel culture would find something questionable he did in the 40s and knock him off his pedestal pretty fast. I think Tony Stark would be the obvious canceling choice. Just rewatch him one and see how much of a Rick he was before Afghanistan. He'd have countless accusations of sexism and etc. You, the player. Joe Goldberg from You. TBH, a lot of those dudes exist by the thousands lol. Kirby. We could kiss all you can eat buffets goodbye. Oh my. You watched until the end? That's fucking awesome dude. Thanks for watching.